Hello, my name is Diane, and today I want to talk about my August TBR. If you don't know, TBR stands for To Be Read. These are the books I'm planning on reading in August. I haven't done an actual TBR since I think September of last year. I've talked a little bit about what I'm planning to read in the coming month, the last few months, but I haven't done an actual list of specific books that I'm planning to read throughout the month. But I haven't been reading a ton the last few months. I've been reading, but I haven't been finishing a lot. And I have a list of books that I really want to finish. It's really been bothering me that I haven't finished them. I have 7 books on this list for this month. 5 of them are advance copies that I've received. One of them comes out next week, and 4 of them are already out. I'm just really behind because my reading pace has really slowed. And the other 2, I recently decluttered my own shelves, and I have, I think, 3 fantasy books that I haven't read, but 2 specifically that I would like to prioritize and get to this month. So I definitely have more books than this that I want to read in general, but this month I would really like to get through those advance copies and owned books so that I can move on to other things and not feel bad about these books, especially the advance copies. I feel bad having committed to reading them in advance and not doing that, so I would like to get those finished and reviewed so I can request more things without feeling bad about it. So 2 of these books, a few of these I've started and read the beginning of, but 2 of them I am actively reading right now and have made decent progress on. I'm not super far into either one of them, but I have read a good chunk of them at this point. The first one is The Sword Unbound by Gareth Hanrahan. I've read, I think, about a third of this at this point. I am really enjoying it. This is the sequel to The Sword Defiant, which was my favorite book of last year, so this was one of my most anticipated books of the year. Actually, a few of these are my most anticipated books, which makes it even more ridiculous that I haven't read them yet. But The Sword Defiant follows our main character, Alf, and he is one of the 9 heroes who saved the land from the evil Lord something. I don't remember his name. I'm not great with remembering character names, so sorry about that. But he is one of the 9, and this picks up many years later. They're all older, they're all doing different things. They've all sort of drifted apart, but sort of still very connected because of the history they have together. And he also has with him that evil lord's sword, which is also evil and can communicate with him. It is a character in its own right. Their relationship is really funny. I think it's very interesting to see it develop throughout the story, to have this talking sword that you can't really trust but is also sometimes helping Alf, and they're trying to figure things out, and they know that something bad is coming. Alf just doesn't know what it is, so he goes and tries to get the remaining 9 back together to prepare for this, and then he finds out that things don't seem as black and white anymore between good and evil. He's not really sure what side all of his friends are on, and he's not really sure once he uncovers what this threat is that's coming, what side he's going to land on. But he's trying to do good, and he's trying to do what is the right thing. It's just no longer so clear-cut as it seemed back in the day when he first became a hero. I really enjoyed the story. I really love this type of fantasy. I really enjoyed the writing and the characters. So I am really excited to see where this story goes. It's just been slow progress, but hopefully I get through the rest of it this month because I am still very much enjoying this world. The other book that I'm currently reading is Le Fay by Sophie Keach. This is the sequel to Morgan Is My Name, another one of my favorite reads from last year, and this is an Arthurian retelling following the first book follows the early years of Morgan Le Fay's life, Morgan being King Arthur's sister from the stories of Camelot, if you're not familiar with the specifics of those. I just found Sophie Keach's writing very captivating. I really liked this version of Morgan that she was telling. I've always liked the character of Morgan, and I think she is portrayed very differently from retelling to retelling, and I really liked Sophie Keach's take on her. So I was very excited to find out that we were going to get a sequel and see more of this character. This is going to be a trilogy, and this second book picks up from when Morgan has returned to Camelot as an adult and follows her life, returning to her home and re-establishing herself there, becoming hopefully part of King Arthur's court. And so far, I'm still really captivated by this story, by this take on this character and this world that I'm pretty familiar with at this point. So I am interested to see how Morgan develops as her relationships within and outside of Camelot continue to develop and change, and how her relationship with magic continues to develop, what she chooses to do with it, if she stays someone that we're going to root for, or if she takes to using her powers for less good things. But either way, I'm very much enjoying this story and this writing, so I'm excited to continue on with it. Another book I have that came out quite a while ago at this point, the sequel is actually already out, and that is The Darkness Before Them by Matthew Ward. This follows Kat, who I read the beginning of this quite some time ago and set it down and never picked it back up, so I'm going to do my best to remember the synopsis. But it follows, I believe her name is Kat, and she is a thief who's in a bit of a tight spot in this point in her life. She owes, I think, some kind of debt, or someone is after her, but in either case she has to steal something that she knows will set her on the right path. It'll straighten out whatever has happened in her past and let her move on and start over. But this treasure, this thing that she needs to steal, is guarded, as most treasures within the city are, by spirits. Luckily, she has the ability to communicate and command these spirits, but I don't think it's going to go quite that easily for her. I read the opening of this and I did enjoy the writing, but like I said, I just set it down and never picked it back up. And now that the sequel is out, I'm feeling very pressured and behind on getting this finished, because I am very much interested in this story. It's not just me reading it out of obligation. I actually do want to read this story. I just need to get on it. I don't know why I haven't finished it. I have no good reason. Hopefully this is the month I finally finish it. And if I do really like the rest of the story, the sequel's already out. Another sequel that I have, again a sequel to one of my favorite reads of last year, is Echo of Worlds by M.R. Carey. This is the sequel to Infinity Gate, which follows, it is a duology, so this is the second half and the finale of this series, but it follows three main characters. We begin with one character, and then the story eventually transitions to the second character, and then eventually to the third character, and by the end they are all together, and we learn how these three characters came to be together and what their role in this AI that is telling us this story, how it came to be in the state that it is, and how I don't actually know what the story is building up to ultimately. I'm very interested to find out, because I was very engaged in this story when I was reading it, but how they were all instrumental in developing this AI, whether they intended to have a hand in that or not. And this also takes place in parallel worlds. There are many parallel versions of Earth that are all a bit different, or some are very different, and a lot of them have connected in a way that they've figured out how to transport between these parallel worlds. And then there are, of course, many worlds that have not figured this out and have no idea that there are all of these parallel versions of Earth. I've always liked that concept in sci-fi stories, that jumping between places, parallel versions of things, different ideas of what Earth could have been in some cases. And I very much enjoyed the story and following along with all of these characters, so I am very interested in seeing where this story goes, reading this conclusion, and seeing what happens to all of our characters. And the last advanced copy I have that comes out next week is A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. I've heard really good things about this. I'm really excited about this. I've really enjoyed T. Kingfisher's fantasy writing previously. I've read a bunch of her fantasy at this point. This follows a girl who has a very peculiar mother, a very strange relationship with her. Her mother is an evil sorceress, and she often makes her daughter, who I believe is named Cordelia, sit very still for extended periods of time, and she has seen her mother take many victims in the past, and when they suddenly move in with a wealthy man, I think he's a squire, and his sister, Cordelia becomes very attached to them. She very much likes them. She feels at home living with them, and she realizes that they are going to be her mother's next victim, and now she is in a very difficult spot where she can either go along with her mother because it is her mother, or stand up to her and try and defend these people that she now considers family. I don't really know what the specific magic is, but T. Kingfisher seems to always have an interesting twist on her magic, very quirky takes on characters. I really like the way that she writes fantasy. I think she writes very interesting and engaging characters, but always has her own unique little twists on things. So I'm always excited to read a new fantasy from her. And the books that I own, I have The Dwarves by Marcus Heights. I've owned this book for quite a while. I don't even remember where I got it at this point, but it follows a dwarf who was abandoned and found and now lives among humans. He's never met another dwarf. He doesn't know of any other dwarfs. He's sure that they exist out there. He just has no idea where to find them. And he is eventually going to be sent on some sort of task or journey and find himself among dwarves again. I don't know the specifics of what happens. I just know that's the premise of the story. He finds himself among dwarves again, and I don't know if he fits in with them or stays with them, or if he is going to be kind of the odd one out because he's always been raised among humans. I read the opening of this. I liked the writing of it. I think the character is interesting. And I don't see a lot of things about dwarves. They're in fantasy here and there, or there are versions of them in fantasy, but I've never specifically read a book featuring a dwarf as the main character, and I think that's really interesting. And the last book I have is The Black Company by Glenn Cook. I have a bind-up edition, The Chronicles of the Black Company, which is the first 3 books in that series. And all I really know about it is it follows a band of mercenaries called the Black Company. I've heard good things about it. I often enjoy those types of characters and the dynamic of having a group, a cast of characters that all have some sort of relationship with each other, in this case being in this group together. So I don't really know what specifically to expect from this. I don't know what the plot actually is. I just know that that's the characters that it's about and following, and I'm just assuming each book is going to follow a different job or journey or adventure or whatever that they go on together. So I'm not sure what to expect from this one, but I am excited to finally try it, especially since I do own the first 3 books in this series. If I enjoy the first one, I'm ready to go on the second and third. Other than that, I don't know if I'll get to read anything else this month. I might squeeze in some graphic novels or audiobooks if I have time, but these are what I really want to prioritize for this month and finally get through, because these are the books that I'm constantly thinking I should be reading that when I'm doing other things. I just haven't really had the time to get through all of these. But I am still very much interested in all of these and looking forward to them, and hopefully this month will be the month I can take them all off of my TBR. Let me know if you've read any of these or what you're planning to read this month. I'd love to hear what you're most excited to read this month. Otherwise, that's all for me today. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.